Really excited to have Jake Cohen here. I've been secretly stalking what he's been doing because I joined his Facebook group and there's all of these names that you hear. Real estate's such a small community and short-term rentals is even smaller. And so I've been hearing about revenue management for the past year and a half or so. And there's some names that have been thrown out there. And I've heard a lot of people who have thrown Jake's name out. Jake also has Step by Step B&B. You founded that.
Yep.
And he also has a Facebook group, Price Your STR. I'm a part of that. So I wanted to really bring him on and help us in our community with pricing our short-term rentals. Because some of us are struggling and there's a lot of data to go over. And a lot of that, if you're not following it, could go way over your head.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me, Alex. And it looks like we just have a few people in here. I love to do interactive type stuff. Those of you that are on, if you have questions, if you want to jump in, you want to ask things as we're going through this, please feel free. I know this is being recorded as well. We're going to have this posted. So any of you that are watching this later, if you have more questions, I want to start by giving you all a quick 5-minute background on me so you know who I am and why you're listening to me. But I started in hospitality when I was 10 years old. My folks bought a bed and breakfast. It was an old 1960s hotel, actually, that was built for the 1960 Olympics in Lake Tahoe. And they found this property. It was on the lake. And they were like, man, it would be so cool to live on the lake. And my parents were business people. So they said, how can we buy this property and make it pay for itself? So they were house hacking back in the day. And what they did is they said, okay, these 3 rooms, we're going to take those for us. And then we're going to rent out the 9 rooms in the back and have people here. It was a great success. They were amazing at running this bed and breakfast. My mom actually won best bed and breakfast chef in the US 1 year. So that was pretty cool to see her do that. She got to appear on TV and do some fun stuff like that. But basically, I started my hospitality career then, 10 years old. I was cooking breakfast for people. I was serving. I was doing all of these things. And so from 10 to 18, I did that. I then went to school at UC San Diego. So I know some of you are down in the Southern California area, lots of roots down in that area. But I majored in economics. I minored in theater. I feel like it's a really good combination for business because we obviously have to make the numbers work, but we also have to put on enough of a show to get people interested, to pull people in, to get them interested in what we're doing. Over the years, it's been funny as I've grown. I realized, man, all of that stuff that I was doing like back in my teens has actually really paid off, all the acting and things like that. After that, my folks had this great plan that they were going to buy 2 places. And they were going to go back and forth between Palm Springs and Lake Tahoe. And they hired a manager and the manager was supposed to work opposite of them. The manager quit after 2 months and I had just graduated college and my folks were like, hey, Jake, why don't you go down, renovate the property in Palm Springs and manage it? So the plan was 1 to 2 years. I'd go down there, renovate, we'd stabilize the property, and then we'd find a manager and I'd go on my way. Unfortunately, we reopened right into the 2008 recession and our numbers were half what we expected them to be. I ended up staying for 5 years because we couldn't pay anyone else basically to do the job that I was doing. And it was a weird time because it was so hard for our family. We were really worried that we were going to lose our properties, which was basically all the money we had in the world. But professionally, it was amazing. I got elected the president of the small hotels of Palm Springs. I won Manager of the Year award from California Hotel and Lodging Association. I was on 7 different hospitality boards before I left Palm Springs. The mayor would call me and ask about new projects that were going on. This was all while I was in my early 20s. And I was like, what in the heck in the world is going on? Like, how did I become this person? But it was really cool. I learned a lot about business. And after that, I moved to Denver and Denver was ripe for real estate investing. And that's when I started to realize that real estate investing was really how you make your wealth. And I had seen my parents do it, but they had done it not quite as successfully as I had hoped for myself. And I got into long-term rentals and then we pivoted into short-term rentals. And the whole time I was thinking about all of this revenue management and experience I had in hospitality from the hotels. And I started to apply a lot of that into my short-term rentals. And what I didn't realize, I was a full-time firefighter during this time, 7 years, residential department. I didn't have time to be in forums and talking to other people about what they were doing. I was all by myself. I didn't know that I was doing things differently than everybody else. And so I finally got out of fire. I realized I could retire myself. I retired my mom and retired myself through this business. So short-term rentals have a really special place in my heart because it completely changed my life. I was working 48-hour shifts. My wife was working overnights in the ER. She's a PA. So I definitely understand all of your guys' rough schedules that you're dealing with as healthcare professionals. And we were able to change our life. We moved to Steamboat. We started a quieter life. My wife still works in an urgent care as a PA, and I started this business, and this became my full-time gig. But it got me out of these 48 to 72 hour shifts where I was away from my kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old now, and my kids were very little when we made the big transition. Life is good. I got into the revenue management really because people were asking me, Jake, how are you making more money with your place down the street from mine, even though ours is very similar? And I didn't know I was doing anything different. So I started presenting to people, here's what I'm doing. And I'm showing them price labs, and I'm showing them all my customizations and my seasons and all the data that I'm looking at. And they're like, I'm not doing any of that. I just put in my base price and I put in a minimum price and I hit go. And I said, oh, okay. Do you want me to help you with it? And I started just helping people with it. And slowly but surely I realized, man, this is something that could be a big business. And I took one of my friend's properties. She had 5 properties in 5 different cities. And I took them for 3 months and I said, okay, we're going to do a test. We're going to see how this goes. I had no experience in any of these 5 cities. And we did a test and it was awesome. She had her best 3 months in all 5 properties. And that was enough to prove to me that, okay, I should start this as a real business and start offering it to people. And initially I started doing consulting. I thought I was just going to teach people how to do this on a one-on-one basis. Very quickly, I realized I didn't have time to meet with each person one-on-one. So I started doing this where I would manage for other people. And now I have about 220 listings on board, and I have 4 employees, 3 VAs, and one person stateside that helps me with this business. And it's been a blast. I really love helping people and I love seeing success. So first thing I want to do is share with you a couple things. First, Price Your STR is my Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Price Your STR, or just type in Price Your STR in search on Facebook. This is an amazing place. There's super smart people in here and they will give you great answers if you have questions about any of your pricing problems. So I highly recommend you join this group. It's one of those things that there's no promotion on here. There's probably 10 or 12 revenue managers that are part of this group. And all of us are going to put our input in. We're going to give you advice. Highly recommend you start there. If any of you need to know how to get in touch with me, the easiest way is to go to my website, stepbystepbnb.com. If you click on the revenue management page, you'll see my cute daughter here. You can watch a little video about me, and then you can schedule a consultation if you have questions or you want to talk more about revenue management. We do a free 1-hour consultation with anyone. There's no expectation that you need to sign up with us or anything like that. So feel free to grab some time on there, and happy to chat through things with you. If you are looking for a revenue manager, we do help folks out. We start folks out with 1 property. It's $250 per month. If you have 10 plus properties, it goes down to $140 per month per property. It gets pretty economical the more properties you get. I know a lot of you are still just starting out, maybe 1 or 2 properties, but we do work with clients of your size. So happy to have a talk with you, go through that. What I want to spend the rest of the time on though, is diving into pricing, right? So the first exercise I want to go through with you all is just talking about listing optimization. So I'm going to just go to airbnb.com. What I want to emphasize to you guys is with listing optimization, what do we see when we do a search on Airbnb? We'll get out of this experience stuff. Let's go to just search an area. Let's search Gatlinburg. Everyone is familiar. Gatlinburg is the Smokies. What I'm doing right now is I just searched for, apparently I searched for Lux 3-bedroom Gatlinburg cabin, hot tub, air, arcade privacy. I don't know how that got put in there, but anyways, the premise is the same. What we see here is 1 photo. Do you see any words? Do you see any pricing? Like when you get on this page, basically all we see is that first photo. None of us are looking at any of the other stuff. We're all just looking at the photo and we're saying, man, this place looks awesome. I can't wait to sit out on that deck and see that cool sunset, or be at this place where I could play pool and look out at this amazing mountain view. So what I'm really trying to emphasize to you is the most important piece of your property is an amazing first photo. Okay. So once you have your first photo, then you get the guest to click. Now the guest is on your page. Now you have 5 photos to sell them on putting in an inquiry, making a reservation, or reading more. Okay. Any of those actions are good for us. If they do any of those things, then we win. If these 5 photos are not good enough, then people hit the back button and they go back here and they say, actually, I like this one better. And they go back to the search page. So let's talk through what I like to do with my first 5 photos. Obviously, your first photo should be the best photo you have of your property. It is the most important photo you have of your property. And ideally, what we want to show is both our indoor space and our outdoor space. If that's possible, I highly recommend you do that. So this is an amazing example of that, where you can see there's a game room, which immediately gets you excited because you're like, man, this is going to be so fun staying there. But you can also see this amazing view behind you and a deck, right? So they painted the picture really well of not only are you getting an amazing place to stay inside, but there's amazing things outside that you're going to enjoy while you're here. Then with the next 4 photos, they're painting the picture of 4 more spaces in their property. Okay. So we see the exterior of the property. This doesn't blow me away. If this was my listing, I would probably change it to something else because it's just a log cabin. It's like 1,000 other log cabins. There's nothing super special about this unless you think, oh man, people really want a log cabin when they go to the Smokies, which maybe this person does. But then they show some really other cool amenities, right? We can see they have a cool fire pit where we have a beautiful view. So that's like A+, crushing it. They have a hot tub, which these days everyone has to have a hot tub in the Smokies, but you should highlight that in your first 5 photos. And then they're showing one last photo. And this last photo, I want to highlight what they did here. So they're showing us a picture and it's really not showing us that much, right? We can see there's glasses, there's table settings. We can see that there's outside. But we don't have a great idea of what this space actually is. But what they did is they showed that they have design, okay? They showed that they took the time to set the table. They showed that they went far enough to go ahead and collect some pine cones and put them on the table. So it's painting the picture that this place is really well put together. So already I'm convinced I'm going to have a great stay at this property. A lot of people will look at these 5 photos and they're going to make a decision right then and there. Am I going to put in an inquiry or book the property? Or do I want to read a little more? So the next step is text, right? So text, we have a very limited opportunity above the fold to get people interested in what we're saying. So I used to write long-winded paragraphs about my properties. I thought that was the way to get people interested. What I realize now, none of us know how to read anymore. We need quick hit bullet points. Everything needs to be like, okay, how far are you from the most important thing I want to come to while I'm in the Smokies? So there's 2 different things I try and highlight in my listing. 1, amenities of the property, and 2, location of the property. Okay. So amenities of the property is, hey, we have a 97-inch flat screen TV with surround sound. We have granite countertops. We have stainless steel appliances, those types of things that people want. Okay. The location amenities, I think, are even more important than that because most people don't go to an area because they're like, oh man, I can't wait to stay in a place with stainless steel appliances. Most of us are not that turned on by that. Most of us are there because we're saying, man, I really want to go experience the Great Smoky Mountains. I want to go to the park. I want to go to Dollywood. I want to go to Ober and ski, things like that. So it's really important that you're highlighting your location amenities. So 5 minutes from the entrance to Smoky Mountain National Park, 10 minutes from Dollywood, 15 minutes to ski at Ober. Those are the kind of things that people want to see at the top of this page. They want to know, how far away am I from the things I want to do? And that's a big driver for getting people to book. So the way I have my listing set up now, I highlight those 2 different amenities. Here's one of my properties. This is one that I haven't updated in a long time. So I'm going to show you one that's a little more up to date here. I own in Steamboat Springs and Gulf Shores, Alabama. I have multiple listings in both places, but my property is not beachfront, so you're not seeing an amazing view of the beach. I wish I had that, but I am trying to highlight how close I am to the beach. So you can see I have a map here of how close I am. I say 350 yards to the beach. I have a picture of the beach and I have a picture of the pool. I know that people don't care that much about where they're staying. They care about the beach and they care about the pool. Those are the things that I want to highlight. But the point I wanted to make was the way I lay out my listing here. So I still paint the picture very quickly I'm trying to get things in their mind. Imagine yourself sitting at the beach, sipping your wine, doing these things. That's what I'm trying to do with these first sentence or two. If I was to rewrite this now, I would shorten this to one sentence. I think it's too long the way that it is now. But you can see right below that, I highlight my location amenities. How far am I to the pool and the hot tub? How far am I to the beach? And then the other thing that's unique about our property is we allow pets. So that's a key amenity that I want to highlight. Then you can see I go back and I highlight the rest of my amenities in the property. Spacious bedrooms, 70-inch flat screen TV, high-speed Wi-Fi. And then I go back and I talk more about my location. This is as far as I expect anybody to get in my listing. I don't expect them to read any more than this. The rest of this is all for Airbnb. Think of Airbnb like Google, okay? The more keywords, the more highlights that we can give to Airbnb, the higher they will push us in the rank, okay? This is true not just of your description, it's true of your title, and it's true of your photo descriptions. Those are great places to put in keywords. So obviously we're talking about pricing. The pricing and listing optimization go hand in hand. So if you are having trouble booking your property, steps to complete before you go down the rabbit hole of revenue management. 1, get new photos, get amazing new photos for your property, because most likely getting an amazing new first photo of your property will make more difference than anything else that you can do. I would love to toot my own horn and say that I can make you an extra 50 grand on your property. But if you have crappy photos, I can't. There's no way for me to get past the fact that you have crappy photos. People are going to continue to look at that and book your property for less or not book your property because they are not seeing the experience that they want. So step 1, get amazing first photo or get amazing photos. Step 2 would be to do some quick listing optimization. This costs very little money for you to go in here, update some descriptions, write things out, make sure that the key points that people want, like location amenities, are highlighted. So do that first. Then if you're still not booking, come to me, come to another revenue manager. Let's chat about how we can make things better for your property. I'm assuming most people are using Price Labs. The reason I'm assuming that is because probably 95% of our industry is using Price Labs. If you are using another software, the same principles are going to apply, but I feel like Price Labs has the best data out there right now, and that's why I continue to use them. The first thing that I recommend anyone to do who's either starting off or wants to improve their revenue management is we have to start by understanding our community that we're in. We have to start by understanding our competitors, and we have to start by understanding our particular property in relation to all of that. So the first thing I always recommend is that people do what's called a market dashboard. Okay. So what you're looking at right here is a market dashboard for my property in Fort Morgan, Alabama, Gulf Shores area. So the process to do this is very simple. You click on market dashboard. It'll ask you for your address, and then you choose a radius basically around your address of how far do you want to search. And then you get this market dashboard. It costs $10 a month. The $10 a month is very cheap for what you get. The other really cool thing about it is you can toggle it on and off. So if you only want to look at this once every 6 months, you can turn it on, look at it, pay $10, look at it for a month, turn it off, and then come back to it 6 months later, turn it back on, get your $10 worth again, and turn it back off. So I love it because it's a great value. So the first thing that I like to look at is first we're looking at the whole market. Okay. So the whole market in this area, we can see on the map here, Gulf Shores is a huge, very popular vacation rental market. I only paid $10, so only got the closest 1,000 listings to my property. So we can see that the main Gulf Shores over here, I didn't get that because I didn't subscribe that far. But I got the closest 1,000 listings to my property, which is still plenty to make really good decisions. We can start to pare this down. First, we're looking at the whole market, and you'll notice up here, you have KPIs, key performance indicators. So we have revenue, RevPAR. Those of you that aren't familiar with this terminology, this is the most important metric for your property, okay? It combines occupancy and ADR in a revenue number. So basically you can see based on how much availability I had, how much did I make per night? So I love that as a metric. RevPAR stands for revenue per available room. We adopted it from the hotel world, which is why it's per room. In the short-term rental world, we can use it as per unit, per listing, per property, however you want to do it. So you can change that last letter if you want to. But basically, we get some key stats about our particular area. One of the ones that I'll call out, which I think you'll see in a lot of markets these days, is your active listings in that radius that I'm looking at have gone up significantly over the last year. So we're looking at the last 365 days. Our revenue has gone up by 20,000 and our listings have gone up by 159. That's a lot. That's a big change in 1 year. There's some really good information here. You can start to understand where's this area headed? In my opinion, it's headed up. There's more properties and there's more revenue. So that's awesome. That's a great place to be. All right. From there, you can start to pare this down, right? I have a 5-bedroom property there. The first thing I would do is say, okay, let's apply the filter and look at stats for just my 5-bedroom property. Okay, so I'm going to look at all 5 bedrooms in my area. The really cool thing about this is whenever you choose up here, it changes the entire report to be specific to that particular metric that you put on here. So now we're looking at statistics for 5 bedrooms in the area. Again, we see that it's gone up 20K. That's awesome. Our active listings have gone up by 19. That's a pretty significant increase as well. We have 141 total listings and it went up by 19. That's more than a 10% increase year over year. So these are just quick statistics, right? This is just giving us a feel for the market. When we really want to start diving into things, we can start looking on this map, okay? Every single listing in this area is displayed on this map. And I love this because probably you guys have heard the terminology enemy method before, right? It's basically where you're comparing yourself to your competitors. I think that was a Luke Carl thing that he came up with. But basically, I know my property is in this area right here. So it's super easy for me to look at any of these properties, click on them and say, man, how am I doing compared to these properties? Are my photos better? Is my description better? Are my reviews better? Is my pricing better? You can click on the listing and see what is their pricing. Okay, $375. All right, good to know. So if you want to do the enemy method, I think this is one of the easiest ways to do it because you can just see all of the listings right here on a map. And it's very easy to click on anyone around you and start to compare. So super cool. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm seeing things pop up on chat. All right. How accurate is Price Labs? Good question, Alex. How accurate is Price Labs? About as accurate as everything else. There's a little bit of tongue in cheek in what I'm saying. Price Labs, like everybody else, scrapes their data from Airbnb. So we feel moderately confident in it in the sense that they're basically looking at the data right before a reservation came in. So say a place was priced at $375 a night, like the property we were just looking at, and then suddenly those 4 nights of availability go away. Price Labs is using an algorithm to determine, was that a block or was that a reservation? If they determine it's a reservation, then they use that in their data and they say, okay, 375 was the ADR for that reservation that came in. I don't think there are any softwares out there that are truly 100% accurate. I do feel like Price Labs has a leg up over companies like AirDNA and companies like that because they actually have real data from customers that are using their pricing program so they can compare their scraped data on my properties that I use Price Labs for versus the actual numbers that came back from my PMS. And then they can match those up and they can say, is our algorithm doing a good job? And so I think that they have a little leg up over some of the others just because of that. The other ones that are out there that use real data are companies like Key Data. Key Data is a subscription service. And the way it works is property managers subscribe to it to get accurate data. The problem with it is it's only big property managers basically that put their numbers in there. Us as individual hosts, we are way more agile. We can make way quicker decisions. We can change our prices more easily. So I feel like when I compare myself to property managers, they give me a large swath of the market. But if a property manager has 100 one-bedroom properties in a condo complex, they can't drop one unit down $10 to get a reservation. They have to drop all 100 units down $10. So when they make adjustments to their entire portfolio, because of that, they have lower occupancy and they tend to have higher ADR, but they only book during high times, generally, is what I have found. This is very generalization of property managers. So I like looking at data like that because it does give us true numbers from them. But I feel like the people that I'm really competing with are people like you and who have a few properties, who can make quick decisions and who can raise or lower their price more easily at a moment's notice. So I think Price Labs is among the most accurate of those that have numbers out there. One of the things I still do is I audit. I don't just trust their numbers implicitly. So if I'm going and I'm going to buy a new property and I'm doing data work, I want to make sure that the numbers that I'm using are as real as possible. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to do that. One of the things that's super important is creating a comp set. Some of you may not understand what that means, but basically what we want to do is we want to take our property and we want to compare it to properties that are as similar to ours as possible. So my property in Gulf Shores is not on the beach. I can't compare myself to properties that are on the beach. Otherwise, my numbers will be skewed way higher. I'm going to think I'm going to do way more money than I actually am going to do. A beachfront property will always do way more money than a non-beachfront property. So what I want to do is compare myself to non-beachfront properties that have a pool and a hot tub in the community that people can use, that maybe have similar design elements to mine. I'm being very specific here. Sometimes you have to be more broad with what your comp set looks like because you're not going to get enough data to have good statistical relevance. My goal is always to have 25 to 30 properties in my comp set. I think that gives you enough where if one property goes from $100 a night to $1,000 a night, it doesn't totally skew your numbers one way or the other. So if we were doing a comp set for my particular property, first thing I want to do is I want to highlight the things that drive revenue. Okay. So in a lot of markets, that's going to be pets. It's going to be beachfront. It's going to be hot tub, pool. I always want to look at estimated occupancy and revenue just because I want to see that. But in some markets, you might find that max guests drives more revenue than a bedroom count. For the most part in this area, most of the 5 bedrooms sleep about the same number of people. It's not necessary for me to pare this down to max guests. But realize there are certain markets where you might have a 3-bedroom property that sleeps 14 people. If that's the case, you probably want to compare yourself to the 4 and 5 bedroom properties in the area because those are more likely to be your true comps as far as how many people you can sleep at your property. So once I select all of those columns that I want to look at, then I can start to look through these statistics here. So what you'll notice first is we have studios. So my property is a 5-bedroom property. So I'm going to start by I'm going to type 5 in there and I'm going to click enter. Okay. So now all I'm seeing is 5-bedroom properties in this list. We only have 12 pages now in this list. Before we had over 100. So the next step is star review. These ones say NA. That means they have no reviews. That doesn't help me because they're not established hosts. So I want to filter that out. So I can use Cool Alligator and say, I only want more than say 4.7 stars. So that filtered out those NAs. I want to compare myself to other properties that are doing a great job hosting. The next step, again, we can look at number of reviews. We have a couple here that only have 5 reviews. So depending on where I am, I might say, I really want more than 10 reviews. So same thing, I could filter that out. In this case, we start to get too few listings very quickly. So I'm going to keep those in there because I need them for my statistical relevance. Then we can move to price, occupancy, estimated revenue. This one is another one that's good to use. So this one says 179 nights. This one says 177 nights. That means that they're not rented full time. Maybe someone lives in these houses half of the time. Ideally, we want to filter those out as well. So I might say I only want properties with more than 200 active nights. Okay. If you had a midterm property, this is a great place to filter out your short-term rental properties. So you could use a minimum stay of more than 28 days, for example, to find those other midterm rentals that are in your market. So then from here, I want to look at this and I want to say, okay, I'm not beachfront. So I need to filter out the beachfronts. So beachfronts are 1 and non-beachfronts are 0. PriceHubs did something really dumb with this. If you haven't been in here recently, you can't just hit 0 and enter. Everything goes away. You have to actually say equals 0 and then it works. Why they did that? Just to make it more complicated for us. I don't know. I talked to them. I told them they should change it back. But basically we can start to pare down and we can come up with a very accurate comp set. Now, once I have this comp set, I always want to make sure that all of these numbers make sense. Okay. So I'm going to call out a couple numbers here. This one here, estimated occupancy percentage, 20%. That seems really low to me. That makes me wonder, was this available all the time? The other one that I can see on that same line is it only has 5 reviews. So it's only been listed for a short period of time. So this may not be a great comp for me to use. Some people may want to use it. Some people may not. And that's your choice. But what I always like to do is I like to click on every single one of these properties and just make sure it is a real comp. They do have availability and all of that. If we just assume that everything is good, then we can have skewed numbers like 20% occupancy. So when you're looking at your statistics, this 20% occupancy is going to bring down the rest of these statistics that are more in the norm. The rest of these we look at and we can say, it's probably like 50 to 60% is pretty normal in that market. 20% is a pretty big change from that. So you want to be careful adding those in. Cool. So that's creating a comp set. Once you have your comp set, you click on the ones that you want to add to your comp set. You name your comp set. So this one I would name something like 5-bedroom, non-golf front. You always want to name it something very specific so that you make sure that you don't forget, because you might create 2 or 3 different comp sets, or as time goes on, you might want to have different comp sets. So I try and be very specific. Then you click generate comp set, and then it will show up here. These are all the comp sets that I created in this area. The cool thing, once you create a comp set, it shows up here. And now I can sort this entire report by that specific comp set. And that's a real key. Because if you want to compare yourself directly to your comp set, you need to know what is your comp set charging? What's their ADR? What's their occupancy? All of those things. I can now do that very easily because I have that comp set built in here. Because the comp sets here are pretty small, I'm going to keep this as a 5-bedroom just to give you better info. But if we scroll down, there's really great info in this report. And this is a real highlight. Spend some time looking at this report. You will get amazing data out of this. I know that because of the Zoom, this is really hard to see, but you can see the scope of the graph, right? We can see that June and July are our high season. Pretty obvious. June and July are our high season. And we can see that it's repeated by revenue, RevPAR, occupancy, ADR. Those are the highest months all the time. Then we look and we see, okay, we have a shoulder season before, we have a shoulder season after, and then we have low season. And you can see that there's a huge difference here between ADR and high season, 992, and ADR in low season, 302. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is how big of a swing there is in the amount that people will pay for their property. So back in the day when I used to do manual pricing at the hotel that I used to run, Alex asked a good question here. How many comp sets can you create? You can create, honestly, I don't know. I've never hit the point where it cut me off. I've created probably 15 or 20 on some of my profiles, and it has never told me you have too many. So I think it's a lot. That's a good question though. I like to create all the different options, basically, of all the different ways I can rent my properties, all the different potential competitors in my neighborhood, so that I can see all the different ways that people are renting. So going back to what I was talking about here, so you can see that our high season ADR is the average daily rate. Okay. So when this says $992, that doesn't mean that's the most money I got for a night during that month. Most likely I had some nights that I booked at $1,500 a night. And probably I had some nights that were at $600 a night. So what the point I'm trying to make here is, when I was manually pricing my hotel, we always thought, oh, super high season, we're going to price it like a night. Super low season is going to be $100 a night. So we went from 100 to 200. That was high season to low season. When we started getting into dynamic pricing, we realized that actually our high season price should be $500 a night, and our low season price should be $57 a night. Those are the swings that you're going to see. And that's how revenue management can make a huge difference in your business, is because a lot of us, we place these barriers to our business, right? We have in our head like, oh, my property is worth $500 a night. So during the low season, I'm not willing to come down to $200 a night to get a booking. But let's think about it from the perspective of how much money you can make by doing this. Okay. So say you can rent your property on the weekends for $500 a night. So you can rent 2 nights, $500 a night. You end up renting 8 nights over the course of your month, 4 weekends at $500 a night. So you made $4,000. Okay. If you were willing to come down to $200 a night for your midweeks, and then we could rent all of your midweek days as well, let's just call it 20 more nights is what we were able to rent. Okay. 20 times $200 a night. We just doubled our revenue. We went from $4,000 a month to $8,000 a month, simply by changing our minimum price for those nights that we could have rented during that time. I think a lot of people struggle with this because they really get tied to that high season rate, and they forget that they can make just as much money during the midweeks and during the off season if they're willing to bring their price down enough to get high occupancy. So one of my big strategies that I work with my clients is driving higher occupancy during times of low occupancy. So in Gulf Shores, you can see January of 2023, we had 8% occupancy. Okay. That is very low. Okay. My philosophy during that time is I want to be part of that 8% occupancy. I want my property booked. Okay. When we have high occupancy, what we can do is we can drive higher ADR. So there's differing philosophy on this. You want higher occupancy during times of low occupancy. During times of high occupancy, you want higher ADR. So this is something that we do with all of our clients, and we use what's called a seasonal profile. So I'm going to go ahead and click into one of my properties in Gulf Shores. This is a 5-bedroom property in Gulf Shores. And this is what my seasonal profile looks like. What I have here is basically each season. So this is winter, that's low season. This is spring break, that's like a mid season for us. What I'm doing is I'm changing my base price. And this is something that most people don't understand about price slabs. If my base price is $469, and that puts me at the 50th percentile of the market, what Price Labs is trying to do is keep me at the 50th percentile of the market during all seasons. Okay. It's moving me up and down, but it's keeping me at the 50th percentile. So it really has me priced the same as all of my competitors by season. So it doesn't give me any advantage of being lower than my competitors during a given season. So what we have to do is actually lower our base price so that instead of competing at the 50th percentile during a low season, I want to compete at the 25th percentile, but I'm a 50th percentile property, right? So when my property is sitting next to all these 25th percentile properties, mine's better than these properties. Okay. So when people look at that and they say, these are all priced the same, book my property every single time because it's better. So I'm going to get more occupancy because I'm priced the same as these lesser properties. Now, the same is true during high season. In high season, I bump my price up 15%. So during high season, I'm confident we're going to be at 80, 90% occupancy during that time. I have no problem letting people who are priced super cheaply get booked first. And then I'm going to wait until I get the higher ADR. It's a tactic that we can use to drive revenue both during the low season and the high season. Because instead of competing at that 50th percentile all the time, now we're competing at the 25th percentile during low season. We're competing at the 65th percentile during high season. We're making these adjustments to drive that additional revenue. This is something that I think is really helps you increase your revenue. If you feel like you've hit that plateau and you're like, man, I feel like I have things dialed in Price Labs. I'm booked a lot, but I'm not getting the numbers that I think I should get. Try doing a seasonal profile. Try differentiating by that season. The other thing you need to do here is you need to treat these seasons differently with your minimum stay profile. Okay. During high season, I have a 7-night minimum until I hit maybe 60 days out. Okay. And then I start coming down off of that. But the reason for that is people are very used to booking week-long stays in Gulf Shores. This is a big house. I don't want to have a 2 or 3 night gap in the middle of the week where I get $0 for those days. I'm forcing people who want to book far ahead to book a week. And I get full every summer. If I was not getting full, I would change my tactic. But because I'm full, I can keep that 7-night minimum on. Now, during low season, I would be very happy for someone to book a three-night stay 6 months ahead of time. If they're ready to book, please take my lowest price, book it, because it's so hard for me to get bookings during the low season. So we have to change our tactics based on the season. These are getting into more advanced topics of revenue management. But the reason I'm talking about these is because these are the things that we're learning from this market dashboard. So we were talking about during the summer months, we have a different strategy than during the winter months. This is median booking window. Median booking window is super important. What this means is half of the people have already booked when we hit this number of days, and half of the people still will book when we hit that number of days. So if we see a number of 115, it doesn't mean that 115 days out, everybody's booking. It means half of the people have already booked. So I always tell people to add a few months to these numbers because realistically, that's when people are starting to book your property. So we're talking 115 days. That's 4 months. Okay. We add a couple more months to that. That's 6 months. So this is for summer. So that means my prices have to be perfectly dialed in 6 months out. Christmas, I have to be thinking about my summer prices. Most of us are not doing that. And by not doing that, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Vanessa is asking, can I please explain the median booking window again? Yes, absolutely. So median means basically the middle. Okay. So the middle of people booking is 115 days in this case. So what it means is half of the people who are going to book have already booked at 115 days, and half of the people still will book inside of 115 days. So it's basically just giving us a metric of how far out are people booking. Okay. So when we look at this one that says 11 days, I don't want to start discounting my property at 14 days. Because the average person isn't even looking for my property yet. So we need to understand that there's a different philosophy when our median booking window is 11 days than when our median booking window is 115 days. And that goes back to that change in minimum stay requirements where I'm saying during the summer, it's okay for me to hold a 7-night minimum because we have so many people booking so far out. When we look at this section where we're at 11 days, I then need to say, no, I can't have restrictions because that's going to make it harder for people to book, and people are booking very last minute. So we don't want to limit the people that can book the property. Hopefully that makes sense. This data is pulled from Airbnb directly by Price Labs. It is not pulled directly from Airbnb. It is scraped from Airbnb. The difference between being pulled directly would being the data is 100% accurate. Because it's scraped, I would say it's 90% accurate. When we're talking about anything that's being pulled in through data sources, with the exception of something like key data that I was talking about earlier, that's coming directly from property managers' PMS systems. That's fully accurate. The data here is scraped, so it's mostly accurate, but they're making some assumptions on whether a property was booked or whether a property was blocked. They're also making some assumptions on discounts and things like that. So there's fudging here and there, but it's mostly correct. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so there's way more data in here, and I know we're running short on time. So I want to get back to actually looking at pricing a little bit, but I highly encourage you, look through this. There's super good data here. Lots of great information. I'm going to show you one last thing because this is one of my favorite things to look at is you have to actually select this. I think it defaults to booked nights. I like to look at this as booked nights by length of stay and booking window. So what you're seeing here is the number of nights booked by length of stay. Okay. So this is something that can really help you with your strategy as far as when are people booking certain lengths of stay. So if we look at 7 to 14 days, the most nights booked were that category, right? It has the highest bar graph. What we can see is that the biggest component of that 7 to 14 days was 162 days were booked 6+ months out. So we were talking about that median booking window and we were saying, man, 115 days is really far out. The data is backing that up. 162 days were booked 6+ months out. So we need to be ready for these people to book 6+ months out. Then we can see 4 to 6 months, we can see 2 to 4 months, and we can see 1 to 2 months. If we just took all of that and we said, okay, we're targeting 7+ day stays, I can feel pretty confident that if I'm dropping that 7-night minimum at the 2-month mark, I can capture a lot of this 7 to 14 day bookers outside of that. They're booking farther out than that. And then if we look, as we get closer in here, we look at the 3 to 4 days. There's a lot of people booking 3 to 4 days close in, right? We see, it looks like 0 to 1 days, 2 to 6 days, 7 to 13 days, 2 to 4 months, 1 to 2 months, etc. So not that many people are booking 3-day stays 6+ months out, right? So we don't have to worry that much about that demographic that's looking for a 3-night stay 6+ months out. Let's focus on the people that are booking at that time. That's this 5 to 6 day, the 7 to 14 day. So this is how you can shape some of that minimum stay strategy because you know when people are booking those longer stays. Key component to look at. There's way more info in here. Look through all of this. Discounts is another place where you can have a huge advantage over people. If we look at this, 87% of listings in this area are doing 0 discount for a weekly stay. I promise you that every one of them wants people to book for a week. Why not we could give them a 1% discount and we'd be better than 87% of the listings. It's crazy. I'm one of those people that I would probably look at this and I'd say, man, if I offer 10, I'm better than like 97% of the market. People are going to see that slash through the price. They think they're buying on sale. They're going to be motivated to book. So use some of that psychology. Give them a reason to book your property. Give them a discount. Cleaning fees, super important to look at this. If your cleaning fees are really high, Airbnb hates you. You do not want to be in that group. You want to make sure that your cleaning fees are in the middle of the distribution. If they're too high, then you're going to be punished. And if that's the case, as my property is in this area, mine's $450. That puts me here. That's not a good place for me to be. So I subsidize my cleaning fee. I bring it down to $250 so that Airbnb loves me again. And they put me at the top of their search rank. There's a gamification to some of this where we have to play the game that Airbnb wants us to play. All right. Let's look back at
tips there. That's a good one.
Yeah. Let's look back at this. So those of you that are just getting into this, there's some key areas I want to point out to you. First off, you're going to enter your minimum price, your base price, your maximum price. That's all pretty self-explanatory. And that's part of PriceLab's normal setup process. Once you get past that, there's all of these different customizations. Okay. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. I'm not going to go into all of those because there's not enough time for me to explain all of them, but just know if you notice a trend where there's a season where you're not booking, or there is days of the week, for example, that are not booking. This is not a great example. We're going into our ultra slow season here. So hard for me to show you a whole lot on this, but say I was seeing every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was not booked at my property. let's think about how could we solve that? Maybe we should offer a discount Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You can do that with a day of the week pricing adjustment here. So I have a -10 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I know those are the hardest days of the week for me to book. So I give people a discount and that keeps my occupancy high during those times. Just know that there's a customization for almost anything you can think of that's a problem with your property not booking. There's an adjustment for that. The other thing I really want to call out here is this neighborhood data tab. PriceLabs has revamped this over the last few months, and there's a lot more data in here than there used to be. So if you haven't been in here in a little while, take a look again. So a couple things that I want to show you. So what I'm looking at right now is I actually pulled in the data from my market dashboard, that market dashboard that we were just looking at. I selected the Dunes Fort Morgan market dashboard, and then I can choose my comp set. So do I want to look at all 5 bedrooms, or do I want to look at one of those custom ones that I built like this, the best 5 bedrooms with pets allowed, not beachfront? Or do I want to use this one, the 5 bedrooms in or near the dunes that are not Gulfront? I can choose the one that I want to look at. Okay. When you have a small comp set like I do, only 11 listings, it's not enough for me to feel confident in having good statistical relevance with that, which is why I'm looking at all 5 bedrooms. I can still make the same assumptions. And sometimes I toggle back and forth when I'm looking at these graphs so that I can see, okay, where are my actual apples to apples competitors? And then where is the overall market? Okay. So then there's a really cool thing here. We can actually mark this up or mark it down. So say you offer a weekly discount and you're trying to target people who are booking up weekly stays and you're not sure exactly where you show up, given that you're giving them, say, a 15% discount. So you can type in here minus 15% and apply, and it's going to draw a new line on here. Okay. So now I can see much more accurately what are people actually going to pay if they book my property on that week discount. So that's pretty cool. A couple other things I want to show you here. A lot of us get tied into where is everybody else priced. I want you to understand these other people, a lot of people are pricing their properties way too high. Okay. So we need to look at actual data of where are people booking. So if we look at the market booked price, okay, this gives us the 50th percentile of where people are booking. That gives us a much better understanding of where are things actually happening in the market than, oh, the 90th percentile is $10,000 a night. That doesn't really help us. The other thing I really encourage you to do is click these 2 things, my upcoming bookings and my last year's bookings. So if we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, this year I booked at 431. That's for a Christmas booking. The year before I booked at 367. I'm pretty happy with that. That's like a 20% increase. That's good. But the way a lot of people have their prices set up, they're trying to get 2 or 3 times what they booked at last year. Don't fall into that trap. It's very unlikely that people are going to suddenly pay 2 or 3 times more for your property than they did last year. So look at the data and use the data to help you make good decisions. If you go down further, occupancy. I think this is super useful. If you click this add last year's data, you can see where did we end last year? Okay. So if we look here, we can see that there's a little bump for Christmas and New Year's. There's a little bump for Thanksgiving, but mostly it's pretty dire. There's not a whole lot of occupancy to be had. So we need to compete based on price during times that are like that. So this is just really good to make sure that you understand what is the market actually doing? Where are we this year compared to last year at Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. And then if you scroll down even further, all this market data has now been brought in here from your market dashboard. So if you're on your listing and you're like, man, I don't have any bookings for October. Why don't I have any bookings? You can very quickly click on your market booking window and you can see, oh, market booking window is 57. I thought it was 100. And you can say, okay, I guess it makes a little more sense why I don't have that many bookings for October yet is because my booking window is shorter than I realized. If you're wondering about your ADR, you're not sure where should I be by month. Remember, ADR is average daily rate. So it's not your high, it's not your low, it's your average. Don't put your price at that for every night. Realize you should have some nights higher and you should have some nights lower than that if you're pricing appropriately. But yeah, really good information here. The other thing that I really like to do is compare to my direct competitors, who your competitors are, right? You're able to just grab, you see these numbers here? Those are actually the Airbnb listing numbers. So if we go to Airbnb here, there's a number right here, and that corresponds to a listing number. So you can copy that and you can actually paste that in here. If I wanted to add another listing, you can just type in that listing number. It's not going to pull up here because that's in a different area. It's only going to pull in properties that are nearby. But basically I can look at any of these and say, oh yeah, these are the ones that I want to pull in. Then what I can do is I can scroll down and I say, okay, I have availability coming up this next week. How is my price versus other people's price? And the cool thing is they even show you that with the markdown. So if you put that markdown on there, you can see what would your price be after that markdown. But I can look at this and I can say, okay, Dandy Sandy East, that's my direct next door neighbor. Like they're very comparable to me. So I can look at this and I can say, okay, I'm priced better than them during the midweek, but they're priced better than me on the weekend. And the weekend is really when I have the best chance of booking. So that might be a place where I say, man, maybe I need to drop my price a little more so that I'm more competitive and I can get that booking instead of my next door neighbor. Really good to always check that data on where you are in comparison to everyone around you. I think that's about it. Any other quick questions I can answer before we hop off?
No, a lot of good information there. I know Scott, he started about a year ago. Vanessa has a arbitrage unit, and there was carried here that we have our listings there. One of the things that is interesting, because you talked a lot about optimization. If we did hire you, would you help us with optimization there? Or would you talk us through? Because you're right. Like some people talk to me about their pricing and I'm like, yeah, but your listing's crap. It doesn't matter what the price is here.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. We don't do any listing optimization for our clients, but we do monitor all of our listings on RankBreeze. So if anything changes, we're alerted to that and we let them know. Part of our initial onboarding process is to go in and do a listing optimization audit. And so that's one of the first things that we talk to our clients about is we say, look, you have a great property, but we can see that your listing or your pictures are old, the lighting's not good, whatever the situation is. We'll talk them through those things that we're seeing. And sometimes it's, hey, your property's amazing. You have nothing you need to do. And those are easy because then it's just pricing. Most people come to us and they have problems on multiple fronts. It's not as simple as us just changing pricing. It's, hey, you need new photos. You need a full listing optimization refresh. You need to change the way your writing is, all of that. And that's when things get harder. I do have a couple partners that I work with that have been doing good work for our clients. So if people have needs, unfortunately, we just don't have the bandwidth to do it ourselves, but I have some good folks that I can forward people onto.
So, I want to be respectful of your time because we're coming up on the hour here. Actually, we passed it already. Jake, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely the easiest way. I'll share one more time my website, but if you want to book a call with me, it's right here. Book a free consultation. This goes to both me and my operations manager, Jillian. So you could get me or you could get her on that call. But basically, you can go to this stepbystepbnb.com, click on the revenue management page and schedule a call with us. That's the best way if you want to spend some time with us and actually talk about your particular situation. If you just have quick questions, I do think that this group, Price Your STR, is a great place to do that. But those are probably the best ways to connect with me on revenue management.
Highly recommend you guys getting a hold of Jake Cohen. $250. I'm cheap as hell, but I'm going to let you know that it'll probably pay for itself and the fact that you'll bring in so much more revenue. So highly recommend connecting with him. I'll have the replay up in the Facebook page. Jake, I'll also share the replay with you in case you want to use it for your social media. I'll create a few reels also. And I'll also have your contact info there in the Facebook page. With that said, Vanessa just joined your community. There you go. So with that said, Jake, thank you so much. Extremely valuable meetup for us. Thank you so much. Yeah, please get a hold of Jake. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. And also, we love people who want to learn how to do this as well. So the way I run my business is always, I don't want to take on a client unless I think I can make at least my fee back for them and give them their time back from doing the revenue management for them. I'm a very straightforward person. If I look through your stuff and I'm like, man, you have everything dialed in and there's no way I can help you, I will tell you that. I'm not someone who's here to take your money. I'm doing this to help people. That being said, we do hope to have a training program in the future. So if you're someone who really wants to learn how to do this, Scott is one of those people that I've been blown away with. He's been in my group for quite a while. Some of the stuff he posts is like pretty phenomenal, really high level stuff. And I would love to work with him in a long-term basis, like in a coaching program. So just know that if you're not someone who wants to hire someone to do this, there will be a resource out there. If I'm being realistic, it's probably going to be like around the beginning of the year is when we're actually going to be ready to launch that. But would love to have any of you in that community. In the meantime, hop on the Facebook page. We do lots of free training there as well.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.